Some crimes are never solved. Some mysteries remain buried in the dark. But what if the truth is still out there, waiting to be uncovered? Welcome to Crime Files. Let's uncover the truth together.
From the moment I stepped into that tiny apartment in the Zama district, I knew I would never forget the stench. It was unlike anything I had ever encountered in my years of investigating crime. This was not just a crime scene. It was a tomb for victims whose deaths no one had seen coming. It all started with a disappearance. A young woman, 20 years old, named Aiko Tamura. Her family had reported that she was no longer answering their calls, but in this era, where everyone is consumed by their digital lives, someone going off the grid for a few days didn't seem all that unusual. But when the police examined her phone, they found something that changed the course of the investigation. The last person Aiko had exchanged messages with was a man named Takahiro Shiraishi. The Twitter account that had led her to him had a chilling name: I'll Help You Die. Investigators decided to keep a close watch on the man. He lived in a small, cluttered apartment in Tokyo, hardly the kind of place one would expect to hide such a horrific nightmare. After a few days, the police found their way in. An undercover officer, using a fake Twitter account, reached out to Takahiro, trapping him in the very same snare he had set for others. On the day of the raid, Shiraishi opened the door with a calm expression. He was an ordinary man, of average height, with no distinctive features that would make him stand out in the crowds of Tokyo. But what the police found inside his apartment was something no one would ever forget. The real nightmare began the moment the officers stepped inside. The stench was so overpowering that one of them had to rush outside to catch his breath. The room was dark, illuminated only by a dim, flickering bulb. But what we saw in there would be etched into our minds forever. All around the room, plastic storage containers were stacked on top of each other. When we opened one at first, we couldn't comprehend what we were looking at. But then, there it was, a woman's head, her black hair eerily clean, as if it had just been washed. Her eyes were closed, as though she were still lost in a deep sleep. But this was only the beginning. In the refrigerator, in the closet, even in the bathroom, body parts were everywhere. Some were stuffed into plastic bags, while others had been meticulously dismembered with surgical precision. He hadn't just hidden the bodies. He had carved them up so cleanly that it looked like the work of a professional butcher. But at the police station, what terrified everyone the most wasn't the gruesome evidence. It was his own words. Shiraishi sat calmly in his chair, showing no signs of fear or remorse. When we asked him why he'd done it, he smirked and simply said, "They wanted to die, I just helped them." He explained how he had found his victims. It all started with a simple message on Twitter. He presented himself as someone who could help those tired of life, someone who could guide them to a painless, peaceful death. Some reached out to him, seeking relief from their suffering, but once they stepped into his apartment, there was no way back. Shiraishi would first give his victims alcohol or sleeping pills to weaken them. Then, in complete silence, he would strangle them with a white rope. He dismembered their bodies, storing the remains in plastic containers. Some parts, those he believed would decay too quickly, were kept in the refrigerator. When asked if he regretted what he had done, he simply shrugged and said, "No, it just became normal for me." His trial took place in December 2020, and the judge sentenced him to death. But even now, one question lingers in the minds of many. If the police had followed the clues sooner, how many more could have escaped the grip of the Twitter killer? Some cases remain unsolved, but the truth is never buried forever. Don't forget to subscribe. The next case might be even darker.